welcome to Bake Your Way Through Holy Week. It's Palm Sunday today, and today is going to be our first bake. Now, I thought this was quite a good idea because I really enjoy baking, and I find that baking can be quite a peaceful thing because while you're doing things with your hands, it's quite easy to think about other things, to focus and reflect. So while we're making all of our cakes this week, just take a bit of quiet time. More difficult, I know, if you've got children, but while you're focusing on mixing the ingredients and doing things with your hands, it's a really good time to help us reflect. So today for Palm Sunday, we are going to be making date slices. Dates are from palm trees, and on Palm Sunday, Jesus rode triumphantly into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey. People waved branches and threw them on the floor before him. So our dates are going to help us to remember Jesus's triumphant entry on Palm Sunday. Now, I've washed my hands already, very important, make sure you do that. And my oven is currently preheating to 180 degrees. The other thing that I've got ready is a baking tray. It's 20 centimetres squared with some baking parchment lining it and coming over the edges. Now, I've got my recipe here, so I will keep referring to it, and I'll put all the instructions on the screen for you. So the first thing we're going to do is, in a little saucepan, put 425 grams of chopped dates. Now, I find it easier to chop dates with kitchen scissors, so you can just sort of snip them up, and that makes it a lot quicker. But if you prefer to use a chopping board, then that's absolutely fine as well. So the chopped dates go in, then we're going to put in 250 millilitres of water. That's going in the pan. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. It's already weighed out for me there. That's going to go in. 2 tablespoons of brown sugar in my pot here. And that is going to go onto the hob behind me here. Get myself a nice little wooden spoon to stir that together, and for now all I'm going to do is leave that to come to the boil. So that's going to be the filling for my date slices. The way that these work is you've got 2 layers of crisp and a filling of dates in the middle. So while the dates are warming up, we'll give those a couple of minutes just to come to the boil. We're going to start making our crisp. So I've got a nice big mixing bowl, and all my ingredients are weighed out already. If you haven't done this, that's absolutely fine. Just pause the video as you go on, and you can weigh out your ingredients and pop them into the bowl. So the first thing I'm going to do is combine my dry ingredients. So I've got 175 grams of porridge oats here. I always have them in my house because we like eating porridge in the mornings, and it's just so quick and easy. So there's 175 grams of porridge oats. 150 grams of plain flour. Now I've weighed it out, but I haven't sieved it yet, so we're going to sieve it as we go through. Sieving it is really important because it gets the lumps out and it gets it nice and airy. So particularly if you were going to be making a sponge cake, sieving it is really important. Just going to sieve that into the bowl. There we are, let's get the last little bits out. Then we have got 160 grams of brown sugar again. It's going to go in. Now, brown sugar is nice because it gives it a kind of richer, deeper taste. That's always good. And here I've got 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. So that's going to go into my pot as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is start to mix those up, just so you can see everything coming together. There we are. While it's doing, I'm just going to check on my dates. They're coming up to the boil. Oh. So you can smell that lemon juice in there as well, which is great. So the final thing I'm going to add to my dates now that they're coming up to the boil is half a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. It looks very similar to baking powder, so don't get them mixed up, and that's going to go in with the dates. So that's kind of frothing up with the lemon juice, and we're going to be leaving that to simmer for about 5 minutes while the dates start to break down and give you a nice skin-free layer. Because I love dates, but they can be quite tough. So those are going in there. So the final thing I've got going into my crisp is 170 grams of butter. Now you don't want it straight out the fridge because it's going to be too cold. It needs to be a little bit softer. That's going to go into my bowl, and we're going to stir that in. But I think that stirring it with a fork, maybe with a spoon, maybe isn't going to be that helpful. So I'm going to make it like you would do with a crumble. So I'm going to put my spoon down, get in with my hands. This is why you need to make sure that your hands are very clean. And we're going to mix those together with my fingertips, sort of smushing the butter in with the flour to make a crumble. So I will do that and I'll be back in a couple of minutes. So I finished mixing together the crisp and I washed my hands, and in that time my dates over here have broken down as well. One thing I forgot to mention is when you put the bicarb into that hot pan, don't be worried about the frothing and bubbling up. That's just the bicarb reacting to the vinegar. It's supposed to do that. So there's my date mix, and here is my crisp mix. The first thing we're going to be doing is pouring half of the crisp mix, which looks a bit like rough breadcrumbs here, or crumble if you're used to making crumble, into the bottom of my tin there. So that's roughly about half, I reckon. And then just make sure it spreads out all over the tin, and then press it down. And as I'm pressing it down, I'm going to remember the cloaks that people threw on the floor for Jesus to ride over on his donkey. Imagine the donkey pressing the cloaks into the floor as it walked over them. Because donkeys are quite heavy, especially with Jesus on the back. So that's what we're going to be remembering. I'm going to switch to using my hands just so I can feel that it's pushed all the way down and into the corners. It's really important to do that for this layer because we can't do it for the top layer because it's going to be having those dates on and they're going to squelch out everywhere. So that is my bottom layer all the way out. And because of the paper it might be a little bit uneven around the edges when it comes out, but that's fine. So here we have my bottom layer. Then I'm going to grab my dates and I'm going to spread them over. And as I'm adding my layers to the slices, you can just imagine the things in my life that I want to lay under Jesus' feet, the things that I want to get rid of. So it could be very different for you. It could be maybe something that you're finding very difficult. It could be something quite serious like an addiction or a bad relationship, something you want to say sorry for, something you feel guilty about. As we lay these layers out, we can lay them all under Jesus' feet. Now I just need to be careful if you're doing this without a grown-up because these dates are quite hot, so make sure you don't touch them because you would not want to burn yourself. There we go, so we've got a nice datey layer there. Just going to make sure I scrape all the dates out. It looks a bit disgusting because dates are quite dark colour. They're a bit like massive raisins, and that's not necessarily the most appetising colour, but they are very tasty, so I'm sure it will taste lovely. There we go. So there are my dates, and then I need to put another layer of my crisp on the top. Now I'm actually going to start off by using my hands to sprinkle it to make sure that it goes all over. Push it into the corners again. This is what I would do if I was making a crumble. But I don't think I'd ever make a date crumble, so it's not quite the same. There we are. Again, making sure it goes all the way out to the edges of the tin, because you don't want to have any bits with just dates and no topping. There, so with the last little bit, you can just make sure it goes all the way out to the edges. Make sure it's level the way around as much as you can. Sprinkle that last bit on. There we are. So I'm going to put that into the oven. My oven's on 180 degrees for about 55 minutes until the top is golden brown. And while I'm doing that, I am going to do the washing up. Always a fun job. So we'll be back in 55 minutes. So the kitchen is nice and clean. I've got my little helper back and the oven timer has just gone off to tell me that my cake is ready. So we're going to get the oven gloves and very, very carefully take the hot cake out of the oven. So it's still a little bit fragile at the moment, but it is looking lovely and golden brown on top, and that is going to crisp up and firm up as it cools. So we're just going to leave it on the cooling rack for about 4 hours until it's nice and cold. I know! Then we can turn it out and we're going to cut it into 16 slices. It will be nice, I promise. So when you've got your slice later on, it's cooled down nice and firm. You can grab yourself a hot drink and a nice date slice and remember the Easter story. Maybe sing a nice little Palm Sunday song as you enjoy your date slice. See you tomorrow.